Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girvardhari Yashodanandana Brajjana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajjana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Krishna. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manubhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupam Kadhamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapada Kamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Tam Sajivam Sattvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padana Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpati Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchana Kalpatya Rupyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavnabhyo Vaishnavabhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hari Krishna 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 Hari 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 Rama 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 Hari Hari Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hi Krishna. So I've been asked to continue with Transcendental Diary, Volume 3, Chapter 4. Srila Prabhupada is landing in London. The period is July 21st to 23rd in 1976. Srila Prabhupada's health condition is quite severe, and the flight was actually very troublesome for him. It was an 8-hour flight, and it is said that during the course of the flight, Srila Prabhupada barely moved. So you can get an understanding of his physical condition. On disembarking the flight, he did ask his personal servant to fetch a wheelchair, but by the time that process got underway, Srila Prabhupada disembarked and started walking the long halls of Heathrow Airport. There were police escorts around him, very concerned about his condition, everyone in a pretty solemn mood. But when they arrived at the passport immigration section, Srila Prabhupada's passport was very thick because of his travels, and the passport officer couldn't actually find the valid passport for entry into London this time. So he flicked through the pages despite the condition of Srila Prabhupada. But he sort of saved himself because he noticed that Srila Prabhupada was actually the face of the Bhagavad Gita as it is that he had purchased. And so he asked, is this the writer of the Bhagavad Gita as it is? And as a result of mentioning that, he was invited to Srila Prabhupada's discourse. So it's just a tiny piece of spiritual spark that we can actually use to climb this ladder that we are all looking for to the spiritual world. And you can see that it takes a great and pure devotee to give us that spark. And just Srila Prabhupada being there, despite his condition, despite his dressing, because he was obviously very warmly dressed, so his hat and all of it would have not made him so easy to recognize, but still he was recognized as someone who is able to give Krishna to us. Then at the airport, of course, Srila Prabhupada meets his disciples, and them hardly aware of Srila Prabhupada's condition are obviously very exuberant and bringing garlands and all their happy spirit. And it's quite amazing because Srila Prabhupada, his grave condition did not cloud his happiness to see his disciples and to let them know how pleased he was to see them. They then drove to Bhaktivedanta Manor, and Srila Prabhupada was unable to take any prasadam. He couldn't receive a massage or any visitors. So that particular day, he kind of just went on his day without too much help to the material body. But there's one cute part that I'd like to read out. Since Srila Prabhupada's quarters are on the upper floor, he was faced with a steep climb up a wide wooden staircase. He stood for a minute at the bottom while we quickly procured a chair with the idea of carrying him up on it. He actually sat down on it. But as I fumbled around trying to coordinate how to lift it with two men holding the front legs and me holding the back, Srila Prabhupada lost patience. Without a word, he stood up, climbed the stairs, and left us behind holding the empty seat. So you can see that nothing really stops Srila Prabhupada. And we'll talk a little bit about Srila Prabhupada, his physical condition, and his ability to transcend that. So if you look at his condition, he was asking for a wheelchair, something Srila Prabhupada in his 70s also taking morning walks, using a stick to get his balance. He never really asked for any assistance. But for him to ask for assistance, he must have been in a very, very weak physical condition. So how is it then that Srila Prabhupada was continuing his travels? How was it that he was continuing being the spiritual master, the Jagat Guru? How was he doing that? What was giving him that potency? So if we look at Sastra, and we notice that in Sastra there's obviously big difference between the body and the soul. And if we look at our situation as it is, if we are for some reason encumbered by the material body, then the tendency is to take a rest, the tendency is to withdraw, and sometimes, just stop for a while. So if you look at Srila Prabhupada's teachings and through the Bhagavad Gita, the verse that comes to mind is 7.14, which is Devi hi say, Gunamayi, Mama Maya Duratyaya. But Krishna says, Mam evam prapadyante, Mayam etam tarantite. So we can see that, we talk about Srila Prabhupada being a pure devotee, but let's talk about how he actually displayed this. Because his physical condition, he was well into his years. Srila Prabhupada was 80-something at this point, and very, very sick. It is said that Srila Prabhupada stopped twice on the journey from Heathrow Airport to Bhaktivedanta Manor to vomit. He hadn't eaten anything. So if any of you have been severely sick and had to vomit on an empty stomach, you will know that feeling of convulsing and nothing coming out. And in Srila Prabhupada's case, it had only mucus and bile. That's all he had. So his body was very, very weak, very degraded. But Srila Prabhupada's spirit was absolutely incredible. And he actually got onto the Vyasasan and started preaching. And the interesting part of his, and we've seen this so many times in reading about Srila Prabhupada, that when he takes to his preaching, he actually forgets his physical condition, whether he's tired or he'd been up writing all night, or he's been sick or just exhausted from travel. He transcended all of those encumbrances of the material sphere. So he talks about meeting people on the trip, and the one arrangement was that Srila Prabhupada would meet with the Pope, and when he agreed to this meeting, it was at a point where his disciples were making the arrangements. But when they asked to confirm with Srila Prabhupada, should we do this? Srila Prabhupada said, no, actually, no, we shouldn't do it. And he gave a very nice story about a tiger and the crane. So the tiger was eating, and he got a bone stuck in his throat after eating. So he asked the crane, which has a long beak, to stick his beak into his throat and dislodge that bone. So the crane, of course, was obviously very concerned that sticking his head into the tiger's mouth, he could lose his head. But he did it nonetheless. And he thinking that he'll get some benediction from such a powerful creature. But when he dislodged the bone, and the tiger was fine, and he asked the tiger, so you're fine now, I helped you, so are you not going to give me a benediction? And the tiger said, I let you put your head in my mouth, and I didn't bite it off, and you still want something more? And Srila Prabhupada explained this in relation to seeing important people in this world, like the Pope. And he said, they are so much like the tiger. They feel that they've done you a favor, giving you their time and attention. So there's no further value you're going to get out of them, because anything further, they think that they're over giving to you. And so there's no spiritual value. There's no Krishna consciousness in that exchange. So in our preaching, we should also be very careful in how we engage with the public, how we engage with individuals. Especially, we have these big ideas of having events to invite people along, and the movement is in need of sponsorship for book distribution, etc., etc. But we have to be very mindful of Srila Prabhupada's instructions in the way we engage with individuals, and understand the implications of such interactions If the objective is not met, and the objective is always Krishna consciousness, and if that objective is not met, then it's not worthy of being done. So we were talking about Srila Prabhupada and his condition, and that he is actually able to continue his work despite his material situation. And I would like to then now open up to the floor and ask yourselves as devotees how we can start to do what Srila Prabhupada did, because that was his instruction. Do like I do. And how do we do that? How do we do like Srila Prabhupada? Because we have to. We have a lot of service in Srila Prabhupada's ISKCON, and we have big jobs like the one that for me is quite inundating, or quite, I would say, gives me a lot of worry and anxiety, is how do we get Srila Prabhupada's books into the school curriculum? Because that's where it's supposed to be. But how do we do it? And we are starting now to talk to the departments. We're starting to talk about the value of Srila Prabhupada's books. There's so much resistance. People are starting to see everything as religion. And when they hear the word religion, then there's all sorts of pushback and resistance. So how do we go forward in our individual spiritual advancement? How do we increase our spiritual worth? Radhika Jivan Prabhu, you know I'm going to ask you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So, to try to get like a school subject. In the 70s, Prabhupada's books was accepted as part of the university courses and things like that. So we have to go back and look how those devotees did it.
Right, thank you.
And now it's like, as you say, it's so correct. It's looked as religion, and schools are governed by like a body, a governing body, and the parents have most of the say. So there's this Hindu, Muslim, Christian, I think. But I think for now we should just continue with the program that we have, going out and hitting the pavement. Harinam, book distribution, Prasadam distribution. One nice experience I had in America, in Spanish Fork, Utah, where I serve as a temple tour guide. 3 years ago, I met a young university student. He's born in America, but his parents were from India, but he's American. And he walked in, I spoke to him, and I recommended the book, The Science of Self-Realization. And he's a young medical student, maybe first or second year medical student. He came from Chicago to study in Utah. And I invited him for the Sunday Love Feast program. And 3 weeks later, he came for the Sunday Love Feast program. I met him, and after when we were taking prasadam, we were speaking, and he says, "Thank you for recommending that book, The Science of Self-Realization. I read the first 3 chapters or articles. It's wonderful, and each time I read, it gets better." So this was a review by a young person, an educated, intelligent young person. So we should try and, as much as possible, become visible. And in this way, in our little way, even just take a walk to the mall, and someone say, "Oh, here's a Hare Krishna devotee." some education will be there, some benefit by them thinking in this way. So we should start with the grassroots level, the most basic level. And we should also try and get more information on how during Prabhupada's time they were able to have university courses. And when we read Prabhupada's books, the appreciations, you'll find many university professors appreciated Prabhupada's books and they recommended these courses. So we should try and meet the leaders of society, the education minister, the local education minister, principals, and explain to them. And this is not religion. As Prabhupada said, it is a science. And what does science mean? Science means something that's applicable to everyone.
Right.
Okay. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. That was so beautiful. I really liked what you said, and I think you also gave me a very nice hint in the work that we're trying to do for Srila Prabhupada's book distribution, is to go back in time and look at historically how it was done. That is a brilliant suggestion. Sometimes we think history is only there to exist, but not to be used. But it's where we come from. Thank you.
I wanted to also just add to that. So we go to UKZN, Howard and Westville campus, and Rukmini had met one of the lecturers there who actually allowed us to use, her syllabus to, use it as our BYS. And that was really nice, and it was a good connection to make that. So also just making those connections to be able to get into the schools and universities. But also the problem with that was that because it was compulsory, they took it as just another school subject, and they didn't take it as seriously. Sometimes it's also better when it's by choice, they want to learn these things. So sometimes when it's in the curriculum, it's compulsory, it's forced, and then it's not always as effective. But I mean, they are at least still hearing it. But I mean, we would have some of those students, they are sleeping, they're fast asleep, they're just coming because they have to. And also devotional service should be, favorable. It should be choice. Yesterday we were reading that we should never force. So we also have to be mindful of that as well, about yes, if we put in the school curriculum, that's wonderful, but we also don't want to force anyone either. So it's there's a fine line, a balance. Thank you.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you, Madhurya. So I'm actually thinking as you speak, Srila Prabhupada always said that. He said, wherever you are, preach about Krishna. And Lord Chaitanya said that as well. Tare Dakot, Chare Dakot, Krishna Upadesh. So he always said, speak about Krishna wherever you are. And sometimes we have to speak about Krishna without saying Krishna. So, and we found that also Srila Prabhupada taught us how to be, to fit into a situation, because he did that so well. He knew exactly his audience and he knew how to pitch. I'm not sure if you know about that one situation where he entered, I think it was in Barcelona, and he entered this hall of youngsters, and they were completely hungover, and Srila Prabhupada came in, and he obviously without even looking at them, he figured it out, and he simply chanted Hare Krishna and left. So he was so appropriate. He knew exactly how to deal with the situation. Prabhu?
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
So I gather you are a school teacher.
Hare Krishna?
I gather you are a school teacher.
I could never do such a wonderful job.
All right. So I'm a school teacher, and I can tell you that we practice what is called a secular module of teaching, where religion cannot be brought into the curriculum if it's not sanctioned by the department.
Yes.
Otherwise, we can have a backlash from the community in trying to propagate one particular religion over the other. Now, we tried in the movement to open a school that was back late in the 1980s in Phoenix. And what had happened was the school ran, but because it wasn't a fully Hare Krishna school. They had kids from other religious factions and denominations.
Yes.
Then what happened was eventually the other parents started putting in, influencing the department to close this part of the school down because they did not agree with the fact that the Hare Krishna teachers, I think even Smita Krishna was part of that school where they tried to, push a particular curriculum. Their intentions were good, but it wasn't met with the desired effect from the community. So it's very difficult. So even amongst devotees, I found that sometimes, even I as a parent, we'd rather have our child get a so-called Western education and then have one foot in the Hare Krishna movement.
Jai Shri Shri Radhanath Jai, Jai Giriraj Govardhan ki Jai, Jai Gaura Hari ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.
So even if we did form a totally private school, Hare Krishna school, you'll find that it will not be able to sustain itself over a period of time. And I do believe even here at the temple we tried with a creche, trying to get some religious formal education going, but it ran for a little while and then wasn't able to sustain itself. In Johannesburg, I used to be part of the Mildersdrift where they had a school running. And even that too ran for a little while, and then after a while parents pulled the children out and put them into private schools, but still wanted to be and allowed the children to come and get spiritual education from our classes and whatever. So in terms of what you said now, to get our books into the curriculum, into the schools, it's a very, very tall order. Very, very tall order. We'll have to see how, like Radhika Jivan said, in our limited way, how we go about, infusing this Krishna consciousness with the community. Because the biggest challenge is to get the youth involved. And you find that all religious groups are collapsing now because the youth are not taking part and do not want to be part of a religious sect, a religious culture, and a religious domain. Hare Krishna.
I loved your word, infuse. I think that word is so appropriate, and I think it sort of, it summarizes all the comments we got. The word infuse means exactly like Madhurya says, you put it there, and you see what happens. It's like a tea bag, you put it into the hot water, and then you leave it. And it then starts to make a difference to that hot water. So that's exactly what Radhika Jivan Prabhu says is, go out there, be present in the form of Harinam, Sankirtan, books, and yourself, and then when they see you, then they think, oh, there's the Hare Krishna. So even Srila Prabhupada said, even if they say the word Krishna, even unfavorably, it's good for them. So sometimes, and I don't know if this is the case with all devotees, but they're shy. They're shy to do their japa. So if they're in a public place and they see someone, they put their bags away. But japa is the most sacred, Japa is all we have. And if we look at transitioning from the material nature to the spiritual nature, then that bridge is built of threads of japa. If you think of it as a rope bridge, it's threads of japa. And if you look at Srila Prabhupada's situation, he's got a material body that is completely unable to be used. It's gotten to a point where it is an encumbrance, it is a burden. But his spiritual strength is so exemplary that it doesn't stop his duty. It doesn't stop his devotional service. And, one could say, yeah, but that is Srila Prabhupada. We are not Srila Prabhupada. But Srila Prabhupada said, do like I do. And therefore, I want to come to the point of how we engage in our spiritual practices, because that's really the starting point. That is the pivot that takes us from Mother Nature, from the lap of Mother Nature, to the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. So please just think about how you engage with your japa. Think about the time you dedicate to japa, and we're all guilty of this. Even in the mornings, you get up early and you do a few rounds, and then you finish your rounds, but you finish your rounds to get to your 16. Right? And yes, there was I heard a lecture once where it was said that Srila Prabhupada finished his rounds and he said, now I can do anything I want. But he meant that. Now I can do anything I want. Think about it in another sense, because he didn't necessarily say it, that I'm done with my japa, now I can have my day. No, he didn't necessarily say it like that. He could have said it like, now that I'm done with my japa, I have the potency to do whatever I want. It's a totally different perspective, but it does make a lot of sense in relation to the way Srila Prabhupada conducted his life. And we know the verse, let me just find it. Bhakti Yogena Sevate. One who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature, and thus comes to the level of Brahman. So that's our objective. When we transcend the modes of material nature, then all these so-called resistances, difficulties, they start to sort of find their place. And you know what, Srila Prabhupada was a big thinker. He thought big. Nothing about Srila Prabhupada was small. Even the time when he found a drop of dal on the carpet and asked for it to be clean, his thinking wasn't about cleaning the carpet. His thinking was about how to have a sanctified place in the service of Krishna. His thinking was how to not cause offenses to the prasadam. So if we look at our scale of balance, and we are trying to move from material nature to spiritual nature, and we're walking this bar. If you think of that seesaw in the child's playground, we kind of like we're walking this bar, right? And with great care, because you can't slip off. So what is that great care? We have to make sure that whilst we are very serious about our devotional service and our spiritual advancement, we have to also be very cautious that we are human. We have limitations, we have needs, and we have certain desires that keep us in a sane place. And that's where those 6 exchanges, those loving exchanges that Srila Prabhupada talks about, having the association of devotees, sharing, entrusting, those are the embraces that we allow ourselves. And that's we should always allow ourselves. Devotees should always be very comfortable in each other's presence and association. It should never, ever be a place where we feel anxious and looked upon and judged. It's a place where we come to be embraced, to grow, to want to be like them, to aspire, not to be envious, but to aspire. I want to be like him. I like what he's got. I want to be like him. So that is the place, that is the comfort, if you want to call it, that we offer ourselves. Now, transitioning, going back to that bar that we are walking, we have to make sure then we take all the tools with us, right? And some of those tools might be the balancing act, making sure that we have a good balance in family life, in spiritual life, but also that when we do our japa, it is done with great sincerity and seriousness. Yes, Madhumangala Prabhu? Sure. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So Krishna consciousness can be spread a lot of places. There are times where I take an Uber, and a lot of times I chant in the back seat, and the driver hears me. And many times I take those small cards that has the Maha Mantra with all those QR codes, and they've contacted me, and they've chanted with me on the way.
Wow.
It was interesting because they found some peace within it. And another thing I feel where we can really spread it is in the malls, like outside the gyms, like for example, Westville Gym. There's a lot of people coming in and out of that mall, and there's always like people selling insurance. There's some Jehovah's Witness people sometimes. Then there's different people, but they just have like a small, look like a donut stand. If we can kind of, I was thinking, get one of that and have it there those peak times with a few books and maybe some beads or a little bit of Mahaprasad, whatever, that will attract a lot of people because they're very interested in finding out about God. A lot of them are like, they're lost, and I mean, they're in the bodily concept too, but they need the business people, some are going to divorce, depression, all these different sort of things. That's a good place because a lot of people walk in and out to actually spread the books. I don't know much about the universities and schools, but I'm sure there's school kids, there's college kids, there's old people, and they can spread it afterwards if we just start there.
Yeah, I agree with you. So I think that is music to my ears. We have taken a proposal to temple management, and they've basically given us the next step, the go-ahead to the next step, which is we've made a proposal. We're starting with taking Srila Prabhupada's books to like the flea markets. Although we've done it many times. Rukmini and her team have been very active in trying to get books to those types of retail options. We want to do it on a more regular basis, in a more structured and formal way. So we're starting with the markets so that we also learn and don't trip ourselves, and then the malls next, because the malls are a little bit more stringent, their hours are longer, so we're trying to do that as well. But thank you for that sort of enthusiasm and also encouragement that is an option. That's a very good opportunity. Thank you. Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about our devotional service, and let's talk a little bit about our japa. Anyone willing to share? Sukumari Mataji? Mataji? So how do we focus on japa? Radhika Jivan Prabhu, give us some ideas, give us some tips.
Yeah. The basic, techniques that we learn is in japa is softly chanting, or just like just chanting softly for your own hearing, but and we should simply chant and hear. And when the mind wanders, then we should bring it back to the sound of the holy name. I remember once when I first visited Bhaktivedanta Manor in London, and after the morning program we were sitting down and chanting. So I was very, excited to be there. Prabhupada was there, Prabhupada is at the back, but Prabhupada was physically present there. And so many senior devotees were there, brahmacharis, sannyasis. At that time His Holiness Swayam Bhagavan Keshav Maharaj was a brahmachari, and he was overseeing my stay at the manor. And he was there, and I could see he was well respected. It's like about 10 years ago. And one morning I had the good fortune of sitting next to His Grace. It's a Prabhupada's disciple, I forget his name, Mahatma Prabhu from the US. And he was visiting London, and he was sitting next to me. And then from time to time he was looking at me, and then I knew why he was looking, because my mind was wandering here and there. And then he just told me, think of one of Krishna's pastimes. That's all.
Okay.
Yeah, so I just wanted to share that.
That's
when it comes to japa. And he told me this. We were just chanting, he was looking occasionally at me, and then he knew, I could see that he could see that my mind was wandering, which happens all the time. And he said, just think of one of Krishna's pastimes.
Wow,
Hare
that's
Krishna.
beautiful. Thank you. And Mangala Prabhu, do you have something to share with us for japa?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
First of all, Prabhupada set the standard actually. Follow the morning program and all his instructions. So when one gets up early, then you have an early start. That's from my experience. I feel that the day is very nice. But when you start the day late, and also your japa hangs on, I don't think you can finish the rounds before the day ends. So it's so difficult. So when you get up early and chant, it's very peaceful actually. It's very nice. Japa is so amazing that for me, it puts me into another dimension. I go into where your mind becomes so peaceful, so blank. It's like, nothing, no fear, nothing really bothers me for the rest of the day.
That's incredible.
Whatever is coming,
Yes.
So chanting and hearing is, I always give out chanting beads on a memorial. When I'm doing a memorial, I give out a lot of chanting beads. When I go to India, I purchase about 1,000 chanting beads and I give them out.
Haribol.
And I don't know how many times I've done that. So, and people, even if one takes to this process, it's very good. So you have to do it in a subtle way, not forcefully. Yesterday's class, we cannot force anyone to do anything. You apply what Srila Prabhupada said, act in a tactful way, in a pleasing way, maybe in a joking way. They will take to this process, So forcefully, you'll be rejecting, so many people will be rejecting our movement.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what we don't want. So coming back to chanting, yes, chanting and hearing. Chanting softly and hearing to your own chanting. And if some of the pastimes comes to mind, it's very good.
Yes.
I have Prabhupada's box, that mantra box, which plays 24 hours. Even if I'm not there, it's still playing. So it plays right through the night. So I'm hearing Prabhupada's chanting.
I heard Nitai Sevani Mataji, she also says that in one of her lectures, that she has Srila Prabhupada's box going continually, and when it runs out, she just gets a new one, but it's always there in the background. So that's wonderful. Thank you
Hare
for
Krishna.
sharing, Mangala Prabhu. Thank you so much. So I think, maybe when we talk to devotees as well, it is not a bad thing to share that, I know when I ask Prabhu every time, how's japa or how's devotional service, he would say to me, I'm struggling, and we have a chuckle about it. But that's what it is. Japa is a struggle. It's a struggle because we are so attached to the material nature. His Holiness Bhakti Swami Maharaj I was listening to one of his lectures the other day, and he was saying that our situation is actually very difficult because we're constantly in the association of Maya. That is our unfortunate situation. Because of our past activities, we're in the situation. So it's not an easy transition, but it is a possible transition. And he goes on to say that the way out of it is through japa. He talks about his devotional service. And I'm actually reading his Charu Vilas, and what I noticed that Maharaj, when he's in a round, when he's chanting around, don't stop him. Wait. Whatever is there, it will wait until he finishes the round. And we all know that Bhakti Chora Swami Maharaj is all about devotee care. He doesn't keep people waiting. He gets very happy to serve the devotees. He will personally cook and serve for them. But he's a bit careful about his japa. So when he's in a round, he told his personal servant, Krishna Kishore Prabhu, do not disturb my round. Wait until my round is finished. So it's not unfair or incorrect to be a little bit selfish with your japa. It's my time with the holy name. Because remember, the holy name is a person. And what are you doing when you're doing japa? Is you trying to engage in a relationship with this very great person. So obviously it needs to take its place amongst other relationships. Because we don't want to keep someone waiting if someone just pops up. Okay, let me finish my round. It's not an unfair thing to say. It is not a rude thing to say. Because it is a relationship. And until we start, and I'm also struggling with this very much, is to remember that when I'm chanting japa, I am engaging in a relationship with someone. So that is such an important realization, and I honestly have that realization every time I'm chanting japa, is to remind myself, I'm actually talking to someone. And imagine if I were talking to you, or you're sitting here and I'm speaking and you're doing something different. So I would feel a little uncomfortable about it. So how does the holy name, who is Krishna himself, feel when we do that to him? And we're doing that to him all the time. All the time. So, in Chaitanya Shikshastakam, it says in the second verse that Nam Namakari Nija Sarva Shaktis. Krishna's put all his energies into the holy name, completely non-different from him. So how do we do that? And it comes back to the third verse of Shikshastakam with Trinadapi, Sunichena, Tarorapi, Sahisnuna, Amanina Manadena, Kirtanya Sadahari. What are we saying here? How does it connect? When we are busy in this mind, when we're busy thinking about something else when we should be doing japa, is we actually stroking the false ego. Oh, I must remember to do this. I must remember to soak the rice. I must remember to fill the fuel. I must remember to buy the stock for the business. I must remember to put the roster out. I must remember. Oh, we're such big people. We have such big things we must do. But any one of us fall down and the world stops turning? No. So it's really about Renada P. It's really about coming to that point of understanding that my relationship with this world is temporary and it's actually most insignificant. And so we need to understand that while the body is actually chanting, the mind, which is what is going to carry us to the next body, is too busy. And so how are we going to train that mind? How are we going to train it to take us back to Krishna? Because that's what we're all here for, right? We're here to go back to Krishna. So if I could pick up anything from what I read in Srila Prabhupada's Transcendental Diary, it's that Srila Prabhupada is Srila Prabhupada because he took his japa very seriously. He took his spiritual master extremely seriously. And Srila Prabhupada said, do like I do. And that's basically what is our journey, our endeavor, our work, however you may call it. But it's not all sour and sad because we have each other. That's why we're here. When I see Matajis in the morning, when I walk in and I embrace them, I would say, I missed you. And I truly miss them because they are my contact to devotional service. And that's our relationships with our devotees. If we keep that in good stead and keep that in a happy place, then we just get fueled more and more and more. We just get showered. Just get showered. Sukumari Mataji knows she can tell me to do anything in the kitchen. I'll do it for her. It's a pleasure. So that's what we're here for. We're here to leave the false ego behind, because when we come here, we are not mother, we're not sister, we're not anybody. We are servants. And again, Miraj said that this is a society of servants. And that's so wonderful because if we're a society of servants, then there's no ego about who's bigger than the other one. And we see that in the exemplary devotees. We see it. And that's why we say we want to be like them. So these are all the tools. So we've got this big war, this battlefield that we have to enter, this Kurukshetra of our own. So make sure that you have these arrows in your quiver. Your japa, your relationships, your devotional service, how you spend your spare time, reading Srila Prabhupada's books, learning from Srila Prabhupada's disciples, because they are definitely great souls, such great souls. Look at what they've done. I mean, really, tell a 19-year-old boy to go and build a temple in a country that he's actually not even lived in or been born in. I think it's a very incredible thing. Of course, they got the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. But they also had something. And that's why whatever we have, we also have the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. Because any time we try to do something for him, he'll definitely give us all mercy, all love, all care. So I'm hoping that, I haven't made it too heavy in the sense that we have duties to do, but understand that we have each other in support of doing those duties. And we must never be shy to acknowledge and take advantage of that. Like you were saying, we're offering Srila Prabhupada's books as in the Bhakti Sastri college. We're offering teachings of Srila Prabhupada on so many platforms now. We've got Gita Live with Swayam Keshav Maharaj. There's so many things. So these young people that are out there, that I don't believe that they're actually not interested. I think they're searching, like you say. I think they're desperately searching. I think they're desperately looking for some help. Because they are so far away from the center now. Every time there's a generation, they're further away from Krishna, if they're not in a Krishna-conscious home. We had a group of Gita Life students, and one of them ended up qualifying as a doctor. And he said that in his group, and he mentioned a school, Shalkra school. Anyway, wherever he is, he attended that school, and he said in his class, in his matric class, as in all the classes that matriculated that year in that school, he was the only one that didn't take to drugs. All the others, somehow or other, got involved in drugs, whether to the nth level or just tried it. So why is that so available? Why is that so entrepreneurial? Why do people take that business so seriously? It's illegal. And yet they're not shy. They're achieving a great turnaround and, getting their monies for that product. It's getting out there. So are we missing something? We got something that's completely legal. So I think it just, we just need to refuel. Any thoughts, any comments? Hi, Krishna.
Going to drugs and everything, because we get an instant hit of dopamine and feeling good. So if we're going to practice this Hare Krishna movement, how are we going to make the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra relevant, so that when we chant, we get that dopamine hit? Any ideas?
Prabhu said he used to give prasadam. Prasadam is instant. Can't get better than that. Maybe your question could be, how do we use prasadam better? I don't know. Radhika Jivan Prabhu, any comments? So I also think it's about a certain tenacity, like, we can try once or twice and then it sort of doesn't give us that immediate gratification, the trier. And then we kind of give up. So maybe we are filling our own sense gratification. So we also have to be careful for that. Okay, I went twice, I spent my whole Saturday there, and then nothing happened. you know. But Srila Prabhupada was in New York for 1 year. Nothing happened. He kept walking back to the dock. Any other comments? Hare Krishna. Thank you. I will invite you for breakfast. And I thank you for your attention and your wonderful participation. Hare Krishna.